Hi and welcome to the weekly predictions based on astrology for the week of February 28, 2022. For the stock market, expect this to be another volatile week, but the things may improve by Friday. On Monday, the mood may be more sour in the morning, but improve by the end of the day, especially 3 p.m. onward. Tuesday and Wednesday look the most volatile with higher than usual market swings regardless of the direction. March 2nd is the new moon. New and full moons usually see greater fluctuation in the market in general, but this new moon is going to pack an extra punch with triple Venus-Mars-Pluto conjunction on top of the US Pluto in the second house of finance. Thursday may be a reversal day, with the downtrend shifting to up due to increased optimism, perhaps on the news about subsiding military activities, some threat being reduced, travel improving, or some other positive news. Friday is going to be the most optimistic day of the week. The market may go up on some hopes or promises, for example, about peaceful international agreements. In all, I expect this to be quite an eventful week, with news about intensified police and military activities and excessive use of force, especially against women. The maximum peak of this influence is going to be the 1st and the 2nd of March. There is also an increased probability of serious accidents, industrial disasters, earthquakes, serious anti-governmental protests, and removal of leaders at the levels of governments or large corporations. The overall instability will bring more wild swings in the markets. Investors may feel the need to take on extra risks. We may see large dips followed by relief rallies. In other financial news, there may be news about attacks on banks, financial manipulations, hacking, and financial fraud. Financial entities may be featured in the news because of some aggressive, risky actions that they take. Ambitious financial reforms, financial security concerns, for example, hacking or concerns about banks' stability, currency rate manipulations, tax reforms, financial regulations, bankruptcy announcements, or concerns about debt and loans. Mortgage and insurance companies will likely be a hot topic in the news. We may hear about aggressive lending strategies, underhanded activities, financial manipulation, excessive expenditures or aggressive risky deals, as well as governmental regulations that may have major impact on how these entities operate and on their profit. Other areas that will also likely receive extra attention this week include mining companies, nuclear power plants, waste facilities, underground storage facilities, recycling plants, prisons, and really any businesses or projects that are related to something that's hidden, underground, or is at the end of its life cycle. For February 28th through March 3rd, there's an increased probability of major earthquakes, mudslides, or shakeups that can undermine the structural stability of various buildings. There is also a greater than usual probability of industrial accidents, transportation delays, and other problems. Negotiations at this time may come out slowly, there may be halt in existing negotiations, or partners may be less willing to compromise. Negotiations or contracts may be postponed and delivery may be delayed. There may be problems or breakdowns involving various large structures, including governmental structures, corporate structures, and literally tall buildings, bridges, etc. At this time, we will experience a triple conjunction between Venus, Mars, and Pluto in Capricorn. At the same time, Mercury and Saturn are going to make an exact conjunction in Aquarius. Both Mars and Pluto signify things like military forces, athletes, and police. While Mars signifies overt military activities, Pluto signifies things that are usually done in secret or in some underhanded, illegal way. Pluto is also associated with things like mining, nuclear power, burials, waste storage, activities that occur underground, as well as activities that occur in secret or are illegal. Together, these energies often combine to signify a powerful explosion, a violent riot, major protests, or massive explosive release of power. For example, back in 2001, the conjunction between Mars and Pluto coincided with a major explosion on an oil platform called Petrobras. This week there will also be a conjunction between Mercury and Saturn and Aquarius, which will bring emphasis on things like IT, telecoms, airlines, aerospace, processing of data, and any sort of travel by air. There will also be emphasis in the news on airborne weapons, strong winds, transportation by air, IT projects, high-tech projects, electric grids, networks, and crypto projects. The functioning in these areas or any negotiations in these areas may either be delayed or require additional scrutiny to ensure that they function properly. We may hear about restrictions, regulations, or losses related to these projects. For example, we may hear about delayed travel or some regulations imposed on crypto. On March 2nd, we're going to have a new moon in Pisces, where Sun and Moon are going to be near Jupiter. Since Jupiter symbolizes expansion, it will draw awareness to areas that are related to Pisces. Those involve oil, chemicals, gas, navy, beverages, fishing, drugs, chemicals, and anything that's related to either dreamlike states or perhaps illusion or deception. Some astrologers I've seen are referring to this new moon as a dreamy new moon, and I think that may well be true for some people. At the same time, Pisces also tends to muddy the water, so to speak, and it may symbolize also hopes that are not going to be realized or some delusions. Given the intense transits this week, the triple conjunction between Venus, Mars, and Pluto, as well as Mercury conjunct Saturn this week, I expect this new moon to be quite powerful, and certainly the events that begin around the new moon, we will see them culminate with some conclusion or some follow-up activities around the full moon on the 18th. Financial deals or financial activities, financial reforms that may occur this week are more likely to be aggressive, or they may have an undertone of something that is either illegal or done in secrecy or is involved in manipulation. For example, we may hear about financial fraud, financial hacking, some massive financial deals, but the details may not be quite transparent. We may also hear about athletes, especially female athletes, being accused of some illegal activities where perhaps some financial fraud is indicated. Or we may hear about male athletes perhaps being accused by a female with the purpose of extorting money. We may also hear more news about either military, weapons deals, or sales involving athletic teams, gear, maybe some deals that involve contracts with coaches and athletes, and again, something that has to do with large sums of money, and perhaps either fraudulent activity or activity where, again, full transparency is not there. With all these difficult transits, of course, you may want to ask, are there any good news for this new moon? Perhaps it is going to be dreamy, or there will be some hopeful news about something that's positive and optimistic. And of course, there's always a positive way of thinking about things, and there's always an opportunity to turn your dreams into reality. This is a really good time to review your finances, review what you owe, or if somebody owes you something, and basically cut out all the unnecessary expenses and get your finances and your taxes in order. This is also a really great time to let go of relationships, again symbolized by Venus, a special relationship with women, regardless of whether you're yourself a woman or man. You can certainly look into situations where somebody is taking advantage of you, manipulates you, especially financially, or just doesn't value the relationship that you're in. This may even be a great opportunity to find a buried treasure, literally Pluto, something that's buried, Venus treasure. This is also a great time to do a really thorough spring cleaning. Again, look for things that are burdening you, that have lost their value, and something that is weighing you down, and get rid of it. The end of the week looks relatively more favorable, and I think that the positive news, or at least optimistic hope, will lift the markets. Expect also increased news about oil, gas, navy, fishing, maritime activities, beverages, and anything to do with Neptunian areas. We may hear about expanding activities, increasing inventory, or increasing prices in those areas. For example, the number of tankers around some port goes up, strong rains cause flooding, or some chemical spills and pollutes a body of water. Now let's talk about the upcoming March rate hike and US housing market. The central bank's Monetary Policy Committee is scheduled for March 15th to 16th. The federal funds rate is expected to increase at that time. Even though the rate hike is not expected to be announced until March 15th through 16th, I believe that this week, especially on March 1st and 2nd, we will hear some relevant announcements that will give us a glimpse about the upcoming hike. Also, the hike may either come sooner than expected, or it will be more aggressive than expected. For the US, on both March 1st and 2nd, there are multiple important transits. For March 1st, around noon, expect some important news about financial policies, currency value, or some financial reforms that may affect gold and silver value. Also on March 1st, there may be concerns about retail sales, communication, transportation industries, and commerce in general. There may be news about restrictions on air travel, delays in communication and transportation, concerns about tariffs, regulations, and lower sales. Around March 2nd, plus minus a couple of days, expect major announcements about some important financial policies. These could perhaps be in follow-up to something that was previously announced around December 19th, 2021. This may involve enforcement of crypto regulations, implementations of some aggressive policies related to taxes, real estate, loans, debt, mortgages, or change in leadership. for example, at a large financial entity. If such a policy or an act is passed at this time, it may have a significant effect on the markets, possibly resulting in a large drop, especially on the 1st and 2nd of March. And subsequently, there may be negative effect on the real estate prices, which will possibly be a decline in the upcoming months due to the excessive inventory. If there are major announcements regarding financial policy or taxes out of the US around March 1st and 2nd, expect some follow-up announcements or events around the 18th. Starting mid-April 2022 until April of 2023, Jupiter is going to be transiting through the US 4th house that relates to banks, assets, real estate, and development on the land. At that time, the available inventory may increase. We also may expect new laws that affect real estate sales or development or their availability. For example, decisions about tax credits for the first-time home buyers or for those who rent properties to others. Later this year, sometime in late May of 2022, Neptune is also going to enter 4th house in the US chart. This will further increase focus on assets, real estate, banks, as well as homeland security, property value, real estate development, farming, as well as the value of people's investments and value of banks' assets. Neptune may bring confusion, news about some deceptive activities, concerns about mortgages being underwater, or concerns about physical flooding. So sometime starting mid-April of this year and especially intensifying into May of this year, I think there may be initially a push to sell properties and their prices may go up. However, it may be followed by subsequent increase in inventory, and I think at that time, housing market may cool down. When we look at previous occasions when Jupiter was transiting through the 4th house in US chart, we find that some laws were passed that negatively affected real estate. For example, back when Jupiter entered 4th house in the US chart in May of 2010, new home sales have plummeted after initially surging in March and April because of the concerns about the expiration of the home buyer tax credit. At another time, Jupiter has been passing through the 4th house in the US chart in 1986 and 87, and at that time, the Tax Reform Act of 1986 was passed, which contributed to the distress in the real estate market because it phased out some of the incentives for the rental housing. With this, I'm going to wrap up this week's prediction. Stay safe, everyone, and until next time, bye.